Let's talk, baby.
We're in the shit now, and I mean that in the good way. What can I say about Devil May Cry that hasn't already been said? It's the birth father of the character action genre. Dante has gone down in history as one of the greatest video game characters ever, not even counting Virgil or Nero, who are just as iconic. Devil May Cry rose back up like a phoenix to a chorus of cheers after facing impossible odds. But I'm not here to talk about the series in retrospect, I'm covering the first game, or as I like to call it, the third best Devil May Cry game. Devil May Cry is the character action / hack and slash / stylish action game. Without it, we wouldn't have the likes of Bayonetta, Vanquish, God of War, No More Heroes, and a whole heap of other games that I relatively enjoy. Yet the creation of this landmark game, it's on the list alongside Silent Hill 2, Resident Evil 4, and Doom, is a curiosity as Devil May Cry wasn't originally its own IP. It was going to be a Resident Evil sequel. Flashback to late 1999. At the time, Sony was prepping for the launch of the PlayStation 2, the greatest console to ever grace humanity, hallowed be its name. As such, a lot of developers were making announcements that they were going to start development for the PlayStation 2, with Capcom making an unofficial statement at the Gamers Day event in Las Vegas, Nevada. I say unofficial as the article I'm drawing this from says that Capcom gave a casual no comment on the news, but added laughingly that Capcom always creates sequels to its best games and we should expect a sequel to Resident Evil on the PlayStation 2, but the IGN article does mention that this info came from Mikami, so basically the horse's mouth. Indeed, Mikami had already chosen Resident Evil 2 director Hideki Kamiya for this new project. The future man of 1,000 blocks needs no introduction, seeing as his importance to the gaming world. Resident Evil 2, this game, Beautiful Joe, Inshin a Go-Go, baby, Okami, Bayonetta, and Wonderful 101. But in this point of his career, all he had to his name was a system planner credit for Resident Evil, a planner credit for author to Astaroth no Nozomu Kaimura Incredible Tunes, and the previously mentioned director credit for Resident Evil 2. He was still green, though Mikami put faith in Kamiya and generally let him spitball ideas. As such, one of the ideas that Kamiya and scenario writer Nobuo Sugamura came up with went something like this. It was about a year and a half ago that the scenario was devised. At that time, the title was still Resident Evil 4, so he proceeded to incorporate the main theme coolness into the worldview of Bio. The main character, the immortal man with abilities beyond human knowledge, was created at this time. Since it is the world of biotechnology, superhuman abilities based on biotechnology and solving the mystery of the body was also included as a pillar of the story. At the time, the team for this Resident Evil sequel was on a field trip to Spain to get ideas for the world of this new game. However, they, the team that would become Team Little Devils, soon realized how far they were straying from the path of Resident Evil. Instead of shutting down this new idea, though, Mikami... I almost said it again. I can't look at Mikami's name without immediately thinking of Chainsaw Man. Pain. Instead of shutting down this new idea, though, Mikami embraced this change of direction despite facing some pushback from Capcom management and the team. Taken from another IGN article, Mikami spoke with the old-time general manager of development, who is quite stubborn, as he put it in his own words, and the change from RE to another game was rejected. Mikami persisted, however, and after a 3-month period of discussion and debate, he was able to speak with all the team members working on the game and was able to slowly, one by one, change their minds. Finally, when he had spoken with all the team members, he again approached the old, more seasoned Capcom development head. Mikami was finally able to sway him, and once the shift was made, the game, he explained, became better for it. With the focus moving away from the more bioorganic orientation that Resident Evil has, Kamiya decided to incorporate more religious elements, switching the natural world with the demonic one and changing the main character's name from Tony Redgrave to Dante as a nod to the writer and star of the Divine Comedy. On the character of Dante, Kamiya went to great lengths with coming up with him. In an interview for Devil May Cry Graphic Edition, Kamiya laid out his process when creating Dante. In the process of building Dante's personality, the first thing that came up in Hideki's mind is the character from the Japanese comic Cobra. Even when Cobra fights, he has a little smile on his face. It is cool, but sometimes Cobra makes a serious face and it makes tension for the readers. Dante too, usually Dante talks to devils like he doesn't care, but he's carrying sadness and spiteful feelings because his family was killed by devils, so his mind can't be calm like water without a wave. He's not going to be scared, but his mind is burning with anger. But if he lets devils know about his feeling, the devils provoke and try to hurt his feelings, so he pretends to be calm and keeps pretends. Then in the end, he can't keep doing it anymore and his story climaxes. The Cobra Kamiya is referencing is the main character of the manga by the same name, name, its alternate title being Space Adventure Cobra, which followed a superhuman man and his robot partner. Sorry for the lack of details in regards to this part. I know absolutely nothing about this manga, and I will admit I'm using the Wikipedia page for this one. Continuing on from where I left off, Kamiya came up with 3 aspects for Dante's design. When he asked the character designer to make visualized image of Dante, he gave 3 focus points for designer. I gave stylishly run with long coat, British guy, and doesn't smoke cigarette. Long coat is I just wanted to put something showy on character. British guy is I wanted for Dante to be not only a fighting man, witty and traditional fighting man. And about cigarette, this is simple, I just thought man without cigarette is cool. After all, designer gave me his idea and we finally came up with the final Dante. His cloth color is red because the red color is showy and cool from all the other colors. Surprisingly, what changed the least in the conversion from Resident Evil to new IP was Sugimura's scenario, as all that was really changed was that Dante's mother and father were written out. The official announcement for the new game, named Devil May Cry, came in 2000 with its release date scheduled around sometime within 2001. While it's obvious from what I've mentioned that Devil May Cry has connections to Resident Evil, it also has ties to Onimusha. Take this with a grain of salt as I don't have the actual source to cut away to, but in the December 2001 issue of Electronic Gaming Monthly, Kamiya explains that he came up with the idea for Devil May Cry's combat from a glitch within Onimusha. When repeatedly slashing away at enemies in the game, they tended to be juggled, which Kamiya saw and thought, hey, that looks neat, why don't we make a game centered around that? Devil May Cry saw store shelves on August 23, 2001 for Japan, October 16th for America, and December 7th for PAL regions. It was also released as part of the DMC collection by itself on the Switch. The version I used was the PlayStation 3 copy of the DMC collection, and I played on New Game Plus hard difficulty for reasons I will explain in the gameplay section. Before I go into the story proper, there is a prequel to acknowledge, that being the novelization of this game. It starts from the downfall of the Sparta family and ends with Dante in his store about to be accosted by Trish. The main detail I want to get across is that Dante has been in the devil hunting business for a long time, though not always under his actual name. For a period, Dante went under the identity of Tony Redgrave as per the dying wish of his mother. What does this mean for the greater story at large? Dante isn't entirely unaffected by what has happened to him, that being the destruction of his family. Seeing as the set has been dressed, our story opens up with the tale of Sparta. Humans and demons were, and still are, at war with each other until one demon woke up to justice. His name was Sparta, and he fought to protect humanity until his death, going down in history as the legendary Dark Knight.
His name was Sparta. Later, he quietly reigned the human world and continued to preserve harmony until his death. He became a legend, the legendary Dark Knight, Sparta.
In the streets of an unnamed city, I am going to assume Redgrave, what with the world building that 5 did, a mysterious lady enters a shop called Devil May Cry. However, instead of using the front door, she uses a nearby motorcycle to crash into the store. The proprietor of the shop, a skilled devil hunter bemoaning his lack of business, underreacts to said action. What does catch his attention though is the woman calling him by name, Dante, and referencing the fate of his mother and brother, killed by demons.
Sorry, we closed at 9. Again, no password. I can't seem to get any real business. Whoa, slow down, babe. Well, what do we have here? Nature calls? It's in the back.
So, you must be the handyman who'll take any dirty job. Am I correct?
Almost. I only take special jobs, if you know what I mean.
You're the man who lost a mother and a brother to evil 20 years ago. The son of the legendary Dark Knight Sparta, Mr. Dante.
Knowing that his search is narrowing, Dante proceeds to point Force Edge, a memento left from his father Sparta, at Trish, earning himself a beatdown before he turns the tables.
Jackpot sooner or later.
In that case, you should be used to this sort of thing.
Are you really the son of the legendary Dark Knight Sparta? Didn't your daddy teach you
Time to go to work, guys. Even as a child, I had powers. There's demonic blood in me.
What strength?
You were the first one to know about my vengeance. Looks like I'm getting closer.
However, Trish, who bears a striking resemblance to Dante's mother, was merely testing Dante as she directs him to Malay Island, home to the demon lord Mundus. Mundus was not only responsible for the deaths of the Sparta family, but is also trying to take over the world.
What?
Years ago, Mundus, the Emperor of the Underworld, resurrected.
Mundus?
Yes. His powers were sealed by Sparta. He's attempting to gain control of the human world once again. He has been preparing to open the gate on Malay Island.
On the island proper, Dante makes a cursory exploration into the Den of Devils, impaling himself on the devil arm Alaster and fending off two demons under Mundus' employ. The magma spider Phantom meets his death at the hands of Dante, who he mistakes for Sparta, and the dark mimic Milo Angelo, who merely runs away. Trish herself witnesses the death of Phantom as well, though it appears from a glance that she may have been lying to Dante while at the shop.
You're right. I'm his son, Dante. Sweet dreams.
Defeated the Phantom. Incredible power.
Finished for the time being with exploring the castle, Dante ventures through the island's surrounding area to find a way into the underworld. He does, alongside finding a new devil arm in the form of Ifrit, but Dante also gets attacked by Milo Angelo once more and a new demon in the form of Griffin, having 3 encounters in total with the bird brain. Come the third one, Dante tries to dissuade Griffin from fighting, but he won't have it, calling upon Mundus for aid. This backfires as the demon lord roasts the poultry, frustrating Dante to no end. He expresses this to Trish, showing that Dante has some form of respect for demons that express humanistic views.
Yours are definitely the powers of Sparta. Even more so. But I cannot let you live. I serve my master Mundus.
You can't fight with that wound.
Mighty is the power of Mundus. Master, grant me one last surge of power. The power to finish him. Master Mundus. Griffin, you have failed me. You are no longer worthy. Master! No! Wait! No! Master, no!
beat him. Maybe it was too easy for you.
Mundus. His heinous ways make me sick, killing even his own, like they were nothing. He's the one that took the life of my mother, my brother, and Shirley. My mother used to always tell me that my father was a man who fought for the weak. He had courage and a righteous heart. In the name of my father, I will kill Mundus.
Traveling back to the castle, Dante finds the items needed to open up the underworld, though he does face a new demon, Nightmare, twice in his search, and he has one last encounter with Nielo Angelo, who, in all reality, was Dante's brother Virgil.
But it's a shame you serve Mundus.
Taking his brother's amulet, Dante transforms Force Edge into the double-armed Sparta, a weapon more than a match for Mundus.
Virgil, Dante, happy birthday.
Wow! I want chocolate! No, I want chocolate!
However, before he can face off with the greater demon, Dante has one last fight with Nightmare, this time Trish backing up the monstrosity. Yet, even with the power of lightning, Nightmare is no match for the son of Sparta, and he even saves Trish from some falling rocks. She's confused over this, but Dante explains that since she looks like his mother, there's no way that he could let her die. Trish isn't Ava, though.
Dante, why did you save my life?
Because you look like my mother. Now get out of my sight. The next time we meet, it won't be like this.
Dante!
Don't come any closer, you devil! You may look like my mother, but you're nowhere close to her. You have no soul. You have the face, but you'll never have her fire!
You two have failed me, Trish. You know the rules.
Knowing that she has failed, Mundus restrains Trish to act as bait for Dante during their encounter. At the mercy of Mundus, Dante takes some spike bolts to the face, but before Mundus can finish him off, Trish sacrifices herself, an action that confuses Mundus because of how human it is. Indignant, Dante draws upon his full power, adopting the visage of Sparta to face off with Mundus, soundly defeating him. Before leaving to escape the now crumbling island, Dante grieves over Trish, blaming himself for once again failing to protect someone, leaving the dual amulet in Sparta with her body.
My mother risked her life for me. And now you, too. I should have saved you.
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light!
This was my mother's. Now I'm giving it to you. My father's also here now. Rest in peace.
On his way out, Dante has one last encounter with Mundus, but being backed by his mother's words and Trish's electricity, Dante lands a jackpot, sealing Mundus back into the underworld.
You'll be okay. You can do it.
What? Mother.
Dante, use my power! It looks like we have a winner.
Jackpot.
Goodbye. And when you do come back, give my regards to my son, will ya?
Reuniting, Trish cries tears of joy, leading to Dante saying that devils never cry. It's a gift only humans have. Luck is another gift, as a seaplane gives the two a way off the island. Our tale ends with Dante and Trish now working together, the shop's name changed from Devil May Cry to Devil Never Cry, a name that didn't stick around for long. Devil May Cry 1 is definitely a foundation for that which the rest of the series would build upon. As such, it will always be a bit weird seeing this version of Dante, as he's much more reeled in, unlike how he would be later on in the franchise. There's no woohoo wacky depressed pizza man here. Not saying how Dante acts in this game is bad, however, as I rather enjoyed this rendition of him. He comes across more as an honorable warrior type with a smattering of what would become the basis of his personality in the later games. Dante's almost like a tokusatsu hero, though I do not know how much Kamiya drew inspiration from works within the genre, and that observation might just be that, an observation of my own making. We know that Kamiya drew heavy inspiration from Space Adventure Cobra, but a lot of what makes Dante could be applied to tokusatsu heroes both old and new. I mean, Dante is technically a henshin hero, as he does transform with Devil Trigger, and Sparta is quite bug-like, but again, I have no basis for this being fact, though Kamiya does enjoy Ultraman, seen as the figurines are plastered on his Instagram page. Anyway, Dante isn't afraid to throw out insults as he tells Griffin to flock off, or no-sell, seeing as he shrugs off being impaled twice in the story, but that doesn't mean he's disrespectful to his opponents. One of the premiere scenes in the game is when Mundus decides to fry up Griffin because the bird brain had failed to defeat Dante. Instead of wiping his brow knowing that Griffin is dead, Dante gets legitimately furious that Mundus would off one of his subordinates. It shows the discrepancy between the two's philosophy. Mundus believes fully in power. Any actions that don't strive to either acquire or retain it by oneself are deemed unnecessary or odd. Note how Griffin asked Mundus to bestow power to him so that he could finish off Dante. That is, for a demon in this series, peculiar behavior, as neither Phantom, Nightmare, Nilo, Angelo, or Trish, starting off, ever do this. Phantom, Nightmare, and Nilo all throw themselves at Dante to no effect, relying on their own strength to fatal results, while Trish only becomes like Griffin after Dante saves her from falling rubble. Both Griffin and Trish embraced a humanistic demeanor, Griffin humility and Trish sacrifice, which is what Dante completely believes in. What good is power if you aren't fighting for something? This contrast serves as the thesis statement for the whole entire franchise. What makes Dante a force to be reckoned with isn't that he's the son of Sparta or a damn good weapon master, it's that he's fighting to protect those who can't themselves. Though it is brought up in the briefest of ways, Dante lost his whole entire family to Mundus / the demonic hordes. Like his father, Dante woke up to a sense of justice, taking up devil hunting as a means to protect the tenements of humanity, particularly love. The reason why Dante even takes Trish's job and rescues her after the nightmare fight is solely because she looks like his mother Eva. It can be taken that Dante goes out of his way to spare Trish because he believes himself to be at fault for the death of Eva. In a way, it's a sort of atonement which keeps in line Dante's more damaged psyche, as he did spend a good while of his life before the events of this game under the alias Tony Redgrave. That's what makes Trish's apparent death land in the story. Dante once again failed to protect someone. To add insult to injury, that someone looked exactly like his mother and had gone out of their way to protect him. The "fill your dark soul with light" line is essentially Dante reprimanding himself for past events repeating, much like Mundus poked fun at how a Sparta was once again challenging him. This whole backstory would be later expanded upon in Dante's Awakening in 5, but I want to keep to what only happens in this game and the prequel novel, as I don't want to bring those elements up as they weren't in one story. Finished with my digression, that's why the phrase "devils never cry" holds so much weight. It's a metaphorical statement on the natural differences between humans and demons. Demons seek only power, uncaring to what happens to the world around them, while humans are able to embrace emotions that tie themselves to one another. All a demon has is power, while a human can have love, friendship, trust, so many other facets that make us stronger. Why do you think Sparta was able to single-handedly fend off the forces of hell by himself for so long? He was protecting his family, Eva, Dante, and Virgil. Perhaps one of my favorite moments in the story is just how left in the dark everyone is about Sparta. The only real information we get about him is in the opening blurb, and that is all you really need to know, mainly because Dante's journey is to showcase how much stronger he is compared to Sparta. Sparta doesn't need to be in the limelight, as not only is he gone, but someone has risen above him. Basically, it's to say that someone will always rise up to face evil in the name of good. Another element that gets thrown in is that Nilo is Dante's twin brother Virgil. While you can't see the full context, you can tell from the flashback dialogue after Virgil's final defeat that the two brothers seem to be on opposite spectrums. When the twins were given the amulets, it was Virgil who wanted both of them, not caring how it made Dante feel. That is the mindset of a demon, but it's clear that Virgil wasn't entirely submerged in that thought process. If anything, it seems like Dante takes more from his mother while Virgil his father. Look at when Nilo gets first introduced. He appears as Dante's reflection, hinting that he is like Dante, but different in a few ways. The best part about this is that this scene gets that idea across non-verbally. You might not even think anything of it until Nilo's reveal as Virgil, where it compounds just how symbolic it was that Nilo introduced himself as Dante's reflection. Again, I'm dancing around a lot here, as 3 and 5 reveal much about the two characters, but for the case of 1, it's a neat little breadcrumb to think about. My only real complaint with the story is how cookie-cutter the supporting cast is. Devil May Cry stories in general are structurally basic, i.e. someone is trying to acquire power, Dante and friends stop them, but have fantastic character interactions that make the stories memorable. Here, it's not hitting the level that the later games would, but it's not entirely bad. Basic is what I would say. There are great character moments, but again, it's more subdued. That said, Dante's interactions with Nilo and Mundus are top-notch, as I'll never forget lines like "a man with guts and honor," or "this will be your burial ground" as well. Devil May Cry is a game that has aged, particularly in its modeling, texture work, and pre-rendered cutscenes, but the art direction, character design, and parts of the soundscape still hold up. While the influence of Resident Evil can be seen throughout Mallet Island, damn if I don't like gothic nightmares, especially ones that take a religious medieval angle. Mallet Island is this snapshot in time that feels believable in the world, as not only do demons run about tearing people apart, but literal hell exists. So of course a strange island home to an eccentric castle off the coast of who knows where would be hanging around all menacingly. I also like how it carbon dates Mundus as an entity. He, like Sparta, comes from an older time where magic and demons were probably much more open to the public, so no-brainer that the entire castle would have odd contraptions steeped in the occult. Probably my favorite detail about Mallet is that it has been through the years as multiple skeletons lay around in its halls. Not only is there a pirate ship dated around the 18th century, as Dante remarks that one of the skeletons was a slave, but there's also a skeleton holding a modern-day grenade launcher. Something I will always applaud in a game is when it makes a location feel lived in, which I must say was probably hard to do for Mallet because of how bizarre the castle and the surrounding grounds are. It gets across that someone did stay at the island, but they probably weren't human. Hell itself in this game gets a special nod as well, as instead of being a fiery hell pit or icy tundra, it's a massive gross body horror. Like even in the world of demons, demons themselves aren't safe as their organs might be used as biomechanical devices. Either that or Billy had to make another heart transplant. Speaking of non-humans, Dante has such a standout design, from the bright white hair and red jacket to the tiny details on his guns, as Ebony and Ivory are detailed with the Tony Redgrave alias. There isn't much that I can say besides saying that Dante has a top-tier design. It gets across that he's an oddity in the regular world, but that's not the one he occupies. The jacket appears as both professional but also out there, as who thinks of an exterminator when they look at Dante? And I don't know if this is an actual reason. I like that it's red because you can't tell when Dante's bleeding. Maybe the jacket was a different color to begin with, but now it's stained red with both his and demon blood. Not to be upstaged, the enemy design is just as stylish, ranging from standard, as the chattering skulls look like Chatter Skull, to more esoteric, as outside their monkey aesthetic I couldn't tell you anything concrete about the nobodies. Like even amongst demons, they're despicably undescribable, a heap of flesh that is damned to be nothing. Devil May Cry hits such a wide variety of enemy types, so even when one appears to be normal, there might be a variation of it that goes into a wild direction, or the enemy might have something unexpected. Take the Sin Scissors, my favorite enemy in the entire game. They come across as Grim Reapers, bearing the large mantle that one would have, but instead of having a scythe, they carry large garden shears easily capable of cutting someone in half. It says a lot that the upgraded versions of them aren't as interesting because they take the more traditional scythe. Cementing the enemy as the standout is the sound. Devil May Cry does have issues regarding its audio balance, especially in cutscenes where some characters get drowned out by the music, but when those subside, Devil May Cry has such a great soundscape. From the haunting wails of off-screen demons to the enemy-specific accents, the atmosphere is brilliantly oppressive. You feel like an outsider, and when you hear a Sin Scissors start clipping away, you know you are. The best parts of the audio are tied up with both the sound effects, as I will never forget any of the menu sounds, that's how ingrained they are, and the music. While Devil May Cry 1 doesn't have any vocal tracks that this series would be known for, the combat music is right up there with the likes of 3 and 5. Public Enemy, Lock and Load, Psycho Siren, Red Hot Juice,
Finally! I was getting tired of playing your childish games.
Flock Off,
Are you the human, the son of Sparta who challenges the darkness for this?
Block off, Featherface, or you can stick around and find out the hard way.
and all renditions of Ultraviolet. are some of the many bangers this OST has, and like I said earlier, the ambience does its job perfectly. However, where the audio once again rears its aged head is the vocal performances. None of the demons give bad deliveries, they are more suspect to the poor mixing, but Drew Coombs' Dante has somewhat stiff delivery. I don't know if this was because of direction or some other thing, but some of the line reads come off as awkward. Sarah LaFleur's Trish has the same problem. That said, a majority of the written dialogue is pretty good, so even with the questionable voice performances, what is being said doesn't come across as ill-fitting. And, unlike a number of people, I will defend the Dark Soul scene, as I take it as Dante cracking from, in his eyes, a tragedy that has repeated itself. It's Coombs' best line delivery by far. Next to the music, the standout piece of the presentation are the cutscenes due to their connection to the characterization, but also because of their mocap. The little sequence that Nilo and Dante have after their first fight is what I mean. Suddenly, a fist fight breaks out, and it's pretty neat to watch, much like a lot of the other cinematics. As previously mentioned, Devil May Cry is a character action game. I could be here all day describing what that entails, but I won't, as that goes deep into game philosophy talk and we're not here for that. For the SparkNotes version of my definition, character action is generally in the third person, has a focus on stylish combat, and you play as a set specific character who has a basic moveset that grows over the course of the game. Before we begin delving into the gameplay at large for Devil May Cry, I want to call attention towards difficulty. When playing Devil May Cry for the first time, you are locked to normal difficulty with New Game Plus bumping it up to hard. Only when hard is beaten does Dante Must Die become selectable. Why I'm bringing this up now is that there are fundamental differences between all three modes. On normal, level obstacles are unchanged, enemies hit hard but not with cruel intent, and Dante's attack damage is unmodified. On hard, if a tougher variant of a monster can appear, it will. Starting marionettes are replaced with fetishes and blades frosts, or the player will encounter more of the same enemy, facing two shadows after the Nilo-Angelo fight instead of one. They hit much harder, have more health, and Dante's attacks deal less damage. This culminates in Dante Must Die, where the above is still true, though enemies deal even more damage and Dante less, but every encounter is on a time limit. Once it runs out, enemies enter Devil Trigger, where they are even tougher to take down. My thoughts on game difficulty have been made known in my other videos, but I will say that when playing Devil May Cry, the best mode will always be hard or the equivalent of, because of how it makes the player assess both their moveset and enemy capabilities. Attacks you thought worthless on normal might be a lifesaver on hard or higher. Likewise, hard teaches the importance of understanding enemy behavior, attack patterns, and how certain attacks affect enemies. Hard is the benchmark for this entire series because it combines all the elements necessary to play in the game while not being entirely borked. Let's just say that Dante Must Die is only for hardcore players and people who love dealing with damage sponge enemies. With that said, Devil May Cry's level layout is structured by a mission format. Each level, besides a few that exist as transitional stages, is its own contained mission. Before each mission starts, the player can visit the shop, though the shop is available within certain levels as well. There is no replaying of missions, so keep that in mind. Seeing as this was once going to be a Resident Evil game, Devil May Cry uses level cues from that series, typically venturing around a central location to find items to open up more of said location. However, where DMC and Resi differ is the type of combat one engages in some level-specific hazards. Speaking about the hazards first, some rooms require the player to either kill every enemy or use red orbs, the currency of the game, to unlock a door, and there are some honest-to-god booby traps in the game like spikes or poison modes. Combat in Devil May Cry is a mixture of melee and ranged, with Dante having access to a main melee weapon, which there are technically 4 of, but all the swords share almost the same moveset and a variety of guns. While it is possible to kill enemies with guns alone, a lot of Dante's damage potential comes from either his melee weapon or skillful usage of both weapon types. Dante himself has a small moveset, though it is capable of taking on every enemy in a comfortable manner. All his weapons have a basic combo string, with some having alternate ones or additional mechanics, an air attack, a launcher, and a selection of moves that can be purchased from the shop. Take note, however, that on-the-fly weapon switching is not possible in this game. kinda. You can switch between Alaster and Ifrit with the press of a button, but it's time consuming and not advisable mid-combat. Guns can only be changed in the inventory menu, which does happen often enough for me to comment on, as some guns are better suited for certain enemies. While in combat, whenever Dante attacks, he will typically aim for the closest available demon or attackable target, though the player can lock on, which enables the use of Dante's guns in some attacks like the launcher or stinger. Lock on is a bit fiddly, as it can sometimes lead to attacking the wrong target, such as the case in the nightmare fights. Enemies each have their own quirks, such as resistance to melee attacks, guns, or having specialty features such as being able to power themselves up or restrain Dante. Soundly defeating an enemy is a mixture of understanding how one acts in combat and how they react to certain weapons or strategies. The fetish is the best example of this. A head-on assault can be a bad move, as they can block, which follows up into a damaging flame spray. However, fetishes suffer heavily from indirect damage, as both the shotgun and grenade launcher send them flying, preventing them from using their more dangerous attacks or even knocking them out of one. Couple that with how slow they move and react, using a fully charged Ifrit launcher into the grenade launcher is a 2-hit kill. Most enemies follow this archetype, thus experimentation is rewarded. That is, unless you use Devil Trigger. DT is only unlocked after Alaster has been collected, and with it, Dante enters a state of high damage and health regeneration for as long as he has DT. Some attacks operate differently when under DT, such as Kick 13 being a barrage, but the major thing is the damage increase. Earning DT gauge is quite simple, as dealing and taking damage fills the gauge back up, and slaying certain enemies will recharge a portion of the meter. To keep the balance, as Devil May Cry 1 wants you to use Double Trigger, and I would say it's a rally mechanic, Dante can only enter DT when he has at least 3 charges on the gauge full, and certain attacks drain the meter like no tomorrow. There are also hidden techniques like jump canceling that can buffer out Dante's moves. I'm not going to go too deep into that, as I don't know the frame specifics, but what I will say in regards to this series is that jumping is your friend, as it has a lot of iframes on startup, more so than Dante's side roll that he can do when he's locked onto an enemy. When an enemy is killed, they drop red orbs, which can be used to buy items from the shop or weapon upgrades. Before I talk about purchasing items, killing enemies isn't the only way to earn orbs. Destroying level objects, finding secrets, and completing a level will also earn the player red orbs, but for that last one, the amount of orbs is dependent on level rank. Enemies can also drop more orbs depending on what style level they were killed at. Whenever Dante deals damage to an enemy, a combo is started. As long as Dante continues to attack an enemy, the ranking will stay on screen or might even jump up. The lowest ranking is dull, with the highest being stylish. That said, combos are not a major aspect of this game, as this system is more supplementary than anything else, seeing as it's effortlessly easy to drop a combo. Moving back to the shop, take note that when buying items from it, the price of said item will increase. Items can also be found in levels, though seeing as I'm a DMC purist, I don't use items. Also in the shop are orbs, yellow, purple, and blue. Yellow orbs act as lives, as when Dante dies, if he has a yellow orb, he restarts the level at a checkpoint, typically a room before he died. Certain mention goes to enemy fatalities, as Dante can be killed in a dramatic way if his health is low enough and he is hit by a specific attack. Purple orbs increase the DT gauge, while blue orbs grant Dante more health. Orbs, at least yellow and blue, can also be found in the levels, but a greater focus goes to the blue ones, as they can come in fragments. 4 blue orb fragments makes a whole one, and these fragments are rewarded for completing the various secret missions that the game has, as well as being found out in the wilderness. Secret missions are found in particular spots in specific levels, and they generally task the player with either a challenge or wave of enemies to kill. Some levels are home to bosses, which are beefed up enemies that require the player to be on the ball, otherwise death is undoubtedly assured. What makes bosses special in this game, however, is some have alternate criteria for defeat, as while it is possible to squash Phantom in his final fight normally, if he jumps enough times on the glass paneling, he will fall to his death. At the end of a mission, the player is ranked on... I don't really know what. Time is listed as well as orb amount, so I'm assuming both play into the mission ranking, but seeing as this is Devil May Cry 1, it's not too important. Just like combo rankings, mission rankings go from D to S, with higher levels awarding more orbs. Killing a boss also awards a bonus, but only if that boss is actually killed in the story. The player can then save before heading to the next mission. It is possible to save within a level, but it does force you to replay it from the start, and the reset option sends the player back to the main menu. Rounding this section out, there are 2 shmup sections, one during the fight against Mundus and the other escaping Malay, but I'll cover one of them later. This game might have one of my favorite enemy rosters, as there's only a few that stand out as annoying. From the basic grunts made up of marionettes, fetishes, and blades, to the middle-tiered frosts and nobodies, to the highly dangerous shadows and plasmas, there's a lot I like about the enemies. For one thing, there's never that moment where it feels like an enemy is designed outside of Dante's abilities. While that may seem like a strange comment, I've played all of these games, and trust me, moments in Base 3 without style switching are a pain, as it's obvious that some enemies were designed with a style in mind. With how simple Dante's moveset is, it's easy to experiment and figure out which weapons and attacks work with what enemy and what strategies are king. Speaking of the weapons, there's a lot of tech with them, such as sidestepping with the shotgun so you don't have to reload, or roll canceling the grenade launcher for faster follow-ups. That's not even going into specifics, as select enemies have stylized ways of taking them down. Foregoing strategy can be fun in its own right as well, as seen by me kicking the ever-loving fuck out of Phantom with Devil Trigger Kick 13. Devil Trigger lets you go berserk in the funnest of ways, and I love how much it is encouraged, as sure, you can use Nightmare Beta as it's a pretty good gun that requires DT, but wouldn't it be so much better crashing through a whole entire crowd of enemies with Inferno, or laser tracking enemies with Air Raid? The utility of Devil Trigger is a never good aspect, as Air Raid can completely trivialize some platforming sections. All the upgrades feel like they have a purpose, whether inside of combat or for exploration. Going back to the spectacle of using DT, the Horde of Blades in the Underground is one of my favorite fights in the game. Blades and Frost are already enjoyable to fight, as they have the right level of aggression with simple to understand attacks that are damaging if caught in one, so throwing a sizable number of blades at the player is such a treat, especially since a well-timed DT can make mincemeat of them. Let's not forget about the bosses as well, as outside of 2 I enjoy facing them, with my favorite being Nilo Angelo, as I'm a sucker for rival fights. Despite my lack of skill in showcasing some of the unique ways to deal with Nilo, his fights have a lot going on, mainly because of how parrying works in the game. Parrying is a hidden mechanic in the game, as only a few enemies, Phantom and Nilo Angelo, have any connection to it, and while you don't have to engage with it to play the game, knowing that attacks can be parried leads to interesting options in combat. There is a reason why Sin Scissors are my favorite monster, and it stems from this. You can kill a Sin Scissors by gunning it down with the shotgun. It goes down in 2 shots. Or to flex on it, you can parry its attack and follow up with the shotgun for an instant kill. Doing this is even a secret mission, and you're never told how to do this. Shadows are another basic enemy that have a quick kill. Whenever it does its skewer attack, the player can jump onto it, allowing bolts to deal mortal damage instead of damaging its barrier. The timing for it requires practice, and it is up to luck if a shadow even uses skewer, but seeing one of the toughest enemies go down quickly all because you understood how it acts is great design. Switching to the bosses, for Phantom, striking his fireball will reflect it, dealing a decent amount of damage to the spider and putting him into a stun state. For Nilo, this is how you get a combo string on him. Yes, you can brute force your way with E3, as Nilo struggles with block punishing when hit with the weapon, but properly timing an attack to collide with one of his is the height of this game's gameplay. It's difficult, trust me, as failing a parry allows Nilo a full combo, but learning the timing is worthwhile. I just wish more enemies had parryable options, a wish that would be granted in the later games, but I'm not talking about those entries. Moving away from combat, this game has fun with any written dialogue. Devil May Cry has enemy files that are detailed to an insane degree, mostly because whenever an enemy performs a new action or is attacked, a new entry gets added. When fighting a plasma, hitting it with Nightmare Beta or Elaster will open up entries that state why both weapons are ineffective against the demon. With Shadow, the journal gives detailed reasons for why it deflects attacks and why it dies so quickly when skewer is parried. By far the best of the written dialogue is Dante's. Dude sees a hellmouth and sarcastically calls it exciting. If ever there was a character defining moment, this is the one. Wait a second. This is a game filled with character-defining moments. I could be here all day talking about how much I love the character of Dante, even if this is the prototype version of him, but to shorten down the reasons, he's an honorable trickster. Dante is more than willing to rile up his opponents, make fun of them for their weaknesses, but he's never cruel, always fighting fair and doing the right thing. The story is never afraid to make Dante the butt of jokes, as seen with his 2 impalements, or take his personal grievances seriously. He sits at such a unique dynamic, being the flippant demon slayer with a retort for anything, but he's also a damaged individual with some heavy baggage. Though I might be overextending with some of this, as the sentiments I'm expressing are made more apparent in the later games, Dante feels like a believable, dare say, human person. If I were to make a comparison, Dante is the video game equivalent to Peter Parker, just more consistently written. For those of you thinking I'm going to bemoan the swimming, I only said that as a joke at the end of Custom Robo. It's not great, but the moments that you have to swim are low stress, as the only enemies that are thrown at you are the blades or sin scissors, both having easily dodgeable attacks while in water. What I will complain about is the shmup section against Mundus and how unfun it is on hard. Note how I'm specifying hard because on normal the sequence isn't too bad, suffering from the same issues as the swimming. On hard, however, the awkward switching of controls and annoying gimmick of having to use DT to burn down Mundus mixes terribly, plus the amount of damage Mundus can do makes the sequence unintentionally frustrating. Not that second half Mundus is any better, but while his first phase is brought down by what difficulty you're playing on, Mundus phase 2 is bad on all difficulties. The core issue with the fight is how random it can be. Mundus cycles through a number of attacks, some more dangerous than others, so the outcome of the fight can be a lackadaisical slog where the final boss offers no challenge, or a bullet hell battlefield where even attempting to strike Mundus is a bad idea. There is no in-between, it's either a walk in the park or a punishing crawl through hell. The only other boss that ever reaches this same level of frustration is Nightmare's final phase during his third fight where he decides to go apeshit. However, unlike with how random Mundus can be, Nightmare's final phase is consistently garbage, as it's hard to tell what's even going on or what he's even doing. Half the time I'm dead before I even know what I got killed by, which is another problem with Nightmare in general, as a few of his attacks come out a bit too fast for my liking. The tendril stab is the major offender, as I can't tell what its range is nor from what part of Nightmare's body it comes out of. That's not too bad on normal, but for hard it can be a ball breaker. More in line with Mundus, as Nightmare is only slightly annoying, are the Hell Scissor enemies, solely because of their gimmick. When fighting one, the player is forced into a small arena that I swear is too small at times, as dodging their ram attack, their most dangerous attack, can be up to chance. Other than that, they aren't interesting in the slightest, being a souped up sin scissors with none of the charm of the original. What's a shame is that it's the only enemy like this, as none of the other variants inspire this reaction from me. I love taking on both the fetishes and the frost, and I think it's because they have attacks wholly separate from their base counterparts. Even Hell Scythe, who is on the level of annoyance as Hell Scissors, at least has his ram attack, setting himself apart from Sin. In fact, why does Hell Scissors even exist? Scythe feels more like a natural progression of the enemy family than Hell Scissors does, what with it switching out one piece of farming equipment for another and being able to block bullets. Beating them, as both Scythe and Scissors have this mutual problem, is also unsatisfying, as it's entirely reliant on Alaster's air raid and gunning them down with either Ebony and Ivory or the shotgun. Lastly, the game's usage of camera angles and platforming is ill-fitting at times. Luckily, Alaster gets a double jump and none of the platforming sections force the player under any duress. Despite how much of a prototype it is, Devil May Cry 1 is still a blast to play through. The gameplay loop is basic but solid, and a good deal of the presentation still holds up today. Get it on Switch if you prefer portability and are unsure about the rest of the series, or buy the collection if this game and the others are right up your alley. Just steer clear of 2. Yeah, don't want to toot my own horn, but total time recording footage and writing the script equaled 2 days. Now, I do this section after I finish the script, so I can't tell you how long voice work and editing took, but hey, apparently I can write quickly, I say as I notice the many spelling errors in this script. But I read it out loud, so it's fine. Something I didn't have a lot of confidence in bringing up for this video is the more technical aspects in regards to gameplay. While I do play this series on the minimum of hard difficulty, I'm not an expert. I couldn't tell you specifics about canceling, and I would advise you to watch a video detailing those, in details. There isn't much going on in my life right now, so I figured I'd answer some comments from the previous video. Kazan Rokuyari wrote, "Let's talk about Kamen Rider, nerd." Look, there are Kamen Rider games, most fighting, which sucks for me as a wise man once said. Baby fingers can't play those games, but I'm more than willing to cover Memory of Heroes, seeing as it is a Mozu, if only it would go on sale. On the subject of Kamen Rider, don't worry, I'll continue referencing it until all my continues are gone. Verde Morte wrote, "So when are you going to talk about Hulk Ultimate Destruction and Prototype?" I've never played any of the Hulk games, though I do know the reputation that Ultimate has, being one of the only Hulk games worth a damn. I have played Prototype, and I own it on PC and PlayStation 3, and while I won't say that the game is bad, I didn't dig the combat in it, at least from what I remember. It's definitely something I need to go back to so I can see if my opinion has changed or not. This showing of Devil May Cry is over, but stay tuned for our next feature involving dinosaurs, worse off Mario Party minigames, and bundled in ad